In his master lecture, Jorn introduced the new patented feature SENSIDRIVE. We hope this is a new revolution within the micropigmentation sector. Thank you. A warm applause for him.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm just impressed that we have visitors from so many countries, and I didn't know this introduction, and I was really impressed. Also about her language skills, I have to admit. So my presentation will be on a new technology to minimize touch-ups. During the presentation, I will also give an overview on how pigments go into the skin and also how the pigments survive in the skin. So many of you are very familiar faces, so many of you already have seen some part of this presentation, but it's very important to go through the basic concept, how the pigments go into the skin, because this will be the base to understand why new technology works better. So we basically start with a slow motion picture of a tattooing process. You do see that the needle is stitching the skin. The frequency is very high, so it's actually 150 stitches per second. And you see the needle here is moving in and out at 150 stitches. This is a slow motion picture. You can also see that the skin is moving away slightly from the needles. This is what we call an umbrella effect, or also fakir effect. Yeah? You see, if the skin is flexible, and if the penetration, the speed of the needle is not fast enough, the skin will just move away from the needle without a proper penetration. But you can also see the very high precision here. Yeah? So there's no sideways fluctuation of the needle. That's also very important to cause the least trauma that is necessary to bring the pigments into the skin. So here we have some cross sections of the skin. This is the untreated skin. This is right after the tattooing process. The next one is a couple hours afterwards, and this is 2 weeks after. So first of all, right after the tattooing process, we see that the epidermis has a lot of inflammation. So the epidermis thickens. We also see that there's a lot of pigments everywhere. Yeah? So the black things are all pigments. And already a couple hours afterwards, you see that a lot of pigment is removed. And now the question is, why? And there's two ways that the pigment go, and they go this way very quickly. One thing is the pigment gets exfoliated, and on the other side, the pigment is also absorbed to the body, and it is drained through the lymphatic system. Now there's a couple of things also for devices, also for pigments, which are important and which are to consider here. Because if the pigments are exfoliated, it means they are pushed out by wound liquids. If there is an exposure of lymphatic fluids and of blood, and it's too much of it, it will just push out, wash out the pigments from the dermis, where you want the pigments. Another one, so you should not go too deep, because then you will cause too much flow of wound liquids. On the other hand, if you go too shallow, not enough pigments will stay, because they will also just grow out together with the epidermis. So it's very critical to have the right depth. Another critical fact is you have to make sure that you do not cause too much trauma to the skin. So if you have devices which vibrate too much, they will tear the tissue sideways instead of entering and exiting the skin with a very perfect, precise stitch. So here you see the final result, and this is the healed skin, basically, almost completely healed. And you see that the pigment is placed in the dermal layer of the skin. This is where the pigments are survived, where they are surviving. So, why are they surviving? During the tattooing process, there is an inflammation. That means, at the same time, activity of macrophage cells. That means macrophage cells move into the inflammation site and they eat the pigments. Sometimes they eat one pigment, sometimes they eat several pigments, sometimes they eat agglomerates of pigments. These macrophages can take several times the size of their original size. So when they eat too many pigments, they're too big. That means they cannot drain through the lymphatic system anymore. So they stay in place, they go through an apoptose, which is a natural cell death, and this is where they stay engulfed on site. So there's a more schematic presentation on where the pigment should go. It's the upper third of the dermal layer. So this is now the basic theory, and now the question is, how should devices be composed to perfectly implant pigments into the dermal layer of the skin? These are all aspects I will go through, and then I will go through the new technology. First of all, it's precision. Why precision? Because we don't want to cause too much trauma. We have a digital control for frequency. That's important so that the line is very even, that we don't have lines where there's a lot of pigment and then we have blank spots and then we have a lot of pigment, so we want even lines. The needle speed. This is to prevent the umbrella or the fakir effect. We want to penetrate the skin fast so that the skin doesn't have the time to move away from the skin, from the needle. We have the penetration angle. I will go into this in detail. We have the needle surface, needle shape, and safety. I will go further into these things. Here you see a big difference. This is one of our precise devices, and this is like a low-cost device. And what you see, the difference is once in the size of the stitches, but it's also in the distinction. So you see there's no sideway vibration. It's going very precisely in and out. So you cause a lot less trauma here. Also here you see that this has been torn. It's on paper actually. This is paper. So the paper has been torn, and also the needle didn't fully retract. This is something that you will experience as hooking. So if you go over the skin with your pen and you feel it's hooking, this is what's happening. The needle is not fully retracting. You cause a lot of damage, and actually it's more painful to the client also. So therefore precision is very important. So here this is another high-speed camera, and you can see here how much time has passed right now. So in reality, only 1 second. Oh, sorry, 0. I can't read from here. Yeah. So in reality, only 0.3 seconds have passed now. Yeah. So you see, it's very, very fast. This is on gelatine. Very interesting to see when you look very closely. It may not be big enough for everyone to see, but the color is not inserted with the first stitch. The color is actually inserted